So,
Hello here. This is Scott Batchelor with news, NBCM News Talk Live Radio with my co-host Marty Bullrock, and we are live today on YouTube and Facebook. So for all those who don't see him on Facebook, we do apologize. You'll be able to hear him, but to get the full show, come to YouTube. The link is below the main header there. So all you have to do is go there, subscribe, and we get our word out. So we're coming here live today because of what's currently going across Canada into Ottawa. And if you haven't seen the videos yet, there's a huge caravan pretty much, and a brigade, whatever you want to call it, going straight to Ottawa and making a huge difference. Also, we got wind today from the Conservative Party that the main planning person for the Liberal Party stepped down today. So the whole brains of the operation is gone. So that's a big victory. But yes, our supporters going out there live video. So we thought we'd do this video here with things. And as they start landing, we'll start doing video here throughout the day. Go ahead, Bullrock.
yeah, that is some interesting news for sure. Gerald Butts resigns as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's principal secretary. This from CBC, it's from National Post, it's from Toronto Star. It's basically from everywhere. This is actually quite a surprise, I would imagine, even for everybody in the missing link and the alternative media sphere as well there, Scott. And this is quite unprecedented, especially on the heels of the recent resignation of Jody Wilson-Raybould, recently of the Liberal Party of Canada's cabinet. Formerly, I think she was the Attorney General, then she was moved to Veterans Affairs, and then she finally got fed up herself and completely resigned. And now with Gerald Butts throwing in the towel, this is two within the last couple of weeks, and it's not looking good for the Liberals, Scott.
No, absolutely. And so, I mean, it still may be sounding a little too early to count as victory, but I do know the Legion escorted a guy to go file charges with the Supreme Court of Canada for Justin Trudeau's arrest. So there's a huge stuff going on here. So hopefully during this event, we'll actually finally make progress and see Justin Trudeau get arrested. So that would be awesome to have that on live TV and stuff. The only problem is, though, is my biggest concern is there's no jail that could probably hold him. He could go bribe his way out, pretend he's dead, find a way out. You know, that's my biggest concern. But
well, that's the thing. If he even sees the inside of it, yeah, that's the thing. If he even sees the inside of a jail cell, we have to realize the type of crimes that these people have been committing and the profile that they are. They're likely going to get, most of them are going to get plea deals, and a lot of them are just going to walk on some sort of immunity deal or some sort of plea deal in order to get bigger fish. Because we have to, like, politics in Canada have been dirty. It's been dirty for decades, and right now, that's just what it is. It's our chickens are coming home to roost in the 21st century here over a lot of dirty politics that took place in the 20th century.
No, absolutely, and we constantly see it, like Harper started selling out the country. I mean, with the selling wheat board of Saskatchewan to the Saudi Arabia, and then he just pretty much almost quit. Like he looked like a zombie going up for the next election. And the NDP guy's only response was, "Oh, I'm going to open up more daycare slots." You already can't find people to work in that deal, but I get the spirit of it. But that can't be your only campaign. We need to be focusing on the homeless. We need to be focusing on rebuilding our country. We need to be, instead of just focusing on oil industry, which is a great industry, we need to also be opening millions of jobs for factories as well to help produce food to everything, so we can be more of an independent nation, because we rely on every other nation to produce for us when we can produce it right here in our backyard and make it a lot cheaper for our production and for our people.
Well, yeah, these are problems that have been neglected for years in Canada. And part of the problem that I just brought up with dirty dealings with the corruption and all that is the fact that the stuff the government is supposed to be doing gets thrown by the wayside. And when that happens for too long, like I'm saying, decades, you end up seeing things. You end up seeing people slip through the cracks. You see poverty increase. You see addictions, mental health issues, all start to rise. And the whole bureaucracy kind of needs a reset now. And it's beginning.
That's the biggest problem is that everyone assumes that the homeless just need a home. And I wish that was the case, because we got lots of empty places.
We're only so easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that they got something wrong with them personally, and you can call it mental health. I think is just a way of easily labeling people. But the reality is they're broken people that need to be healed. And the way the system is designed to help fix them. It's designed to medicate you, and then out the door you go. And then if you don't take your medication again, you end up back in the same spot.
Well, let me get into the specifics of what I mean by mental health. It comes from a lack of opportunity, and it's basically routine and habit forming. You know what I mean? You can argue like a series of bad habits. Like if you have no opportunity, you have no scope for any opportunity, and it leads to problems that people need help with. They need to kind of like be rehabilitated back into society. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all rooted in a lack of opportunity that comes from what you just said. Like things not being made here. We've lost everything. Everything's all outsourced. You know, we are so dependent on other nations for all of our production that literally people will have no opportunity, nothing better to do but get addicted to things, live in absolute poverty. You know what I mean? That's what I'm getting at here with this guy.
Well, see, the scary part, and most people don't realize, is that if we don't start picking up those factories again and getting those jobs open, that especially with the way our prime minister is going, if the whole world cut us off, a lot of our people would starve, not from lack of work, but because we can't produce our own damn food anymore.
Well, yeah, we got to fix that first and foremost. We're a country full of food and water, with some of the more expensive food and water prices in the West. That's not right either.
Well, we produce about 80% of the world's grain to the most of the countries around the world, but yet we can't even produce. Like, this is talking about raw stuff. This isn't like processing the flour. Simple refining positions, that can make us so that way we actually have jobs here. I mean, if we refined all the grains or all the wheat we had here into flour, that would make a huge difference. All the seeds into canola, from canola into oil. A lot of our stuff gets sent down south. There is some here, but very little compared to what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of our livestock we send down south, and then it comes back up like triple the price of what we should be paying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous for a country with at least two very large agricultural provinces where we have everything from grain, maple syrup, pork, beef, you name it. Meats that probably people don't appreciate. Like we have lamb as well. And a lot of Canadians are truly ignorant as to how much of that we ship overseas to feed other nations, along with all the money we keep hearing about the LPC giving away. Like that happened under Mulroney as well. We have a habit of doing that. And we have literally forgotten to take care of our own backyard. And that's what's going on. We're too busy tending to other people's gardens, and we've let ours go to crap.
No, absolutely. And it's amazing. Like, so this is why it's so exciting to see all these people. And from what I understand, they're in Sunbury right now, and they're moving on. But the problem is they're moving so slow. They have to be careful because Antifa is out there trying to slow them down, so they don't want their trucks and vehicles damaged. But what they're doing is they put the semis mostly in the middle or the back of the convoy, so it makes a huge difference for them because these big trucks are worth $500,000 a piece. They're not cheap. So a lot of they have a fire truck going in the front that's escorted them mostly all the way. They have a whole stream of pickup trucks, everything like that with Canadian flags. It is so awesome to see the progress we're making as Canadians. It's not even funny. So, but before we continue there, this broadcasting is brought to you by the Underground Social Network at canard.com. Come join us. It's free, and it literally is free. Freedom of speech, freedom of voice, and a place to go and not have to worry about getting restricted or banned like Facebook or the rest of the social networks. Thank you very much for listening, and back to our show.
Yep. Well, to elaborate a little bit on that, Scott, it is hard to not get a little bit of hope seeing that finally it looks like Canadians are getting up off their rear ends and uniting around at least some Canadian objectivity here. Where the last time, like we're coming out of the likes of in the House of Commons, where you have people trying to mention even Canadian values, and they get pilloried for it. You know, like literally drawn and quartered in the House of Commons for even mentioning the idea. That was Kelly Leach. And now it looks like it can't be ignored anymore. You know, you literally have the West coming to the East, bringing grievances, everything from the carbon tax to food prices to cost of living, you name it, to the decades of neglect. And it's about time, you know, like we have some serious issues and we got to get them dealt with.
Well, we
have to also go ahead.
Sorry. Well, see, the biggest thing for us too, if our country leaders were smart whatsoever, they should be paying us the dividends for anyone who is poor, like every other oil-rich country. But yet we're paying huge amount of taxes when it's stupid. Our people have so much resources, and if it was done right, like say Saudi Arabia, all the other countries that do that, they pay their citizens 8 to 10 grand a month, and we're here sitting in poverty. And that's every citizen. That doesn't matter whether you're like a millionaire or not. That's every citizen in those other countries. And there's a lot of other countries not, but Saudi Arabia is one of the examples, right? So why do you think we want to continue getting the 18.5 billion a year and stuff like that? And I find it interesting. Everyone wants to put a pipeline across the country. We have oil in the east that doesn't need to go very far with a pipeline, and we can put that in there instead of having to drag a pipeline all the way across. And this way we can have east oil supplying east and then west, but we get rid of the stupid equalization tax.
Yeah. Well, I think I know what you mean there. With the with a better supply scheme, I think that's what Maxime Bernier really means. Like, you know, like everybody in the West uses hyperbolic language. Like we don't really necessarily have a habit of going straight to the root with how we speak. Like when we see geopolitics, we'll say Israel's going to strike Syria. You know what I mean? We don't necessarily say Netanyahu is going to attack an Iranian target in Syria. We always speak like that. And the same thing goes on with our politics as well. We really have to get to the nuance and the specifics of it all. And then we have to kind of get to the root of the problem that way. And once we get past that in Canada, we can actually get to the real problems that affect all Canadians. Go ahead there.
For anyone who is wondering what the Yellow Vest movement is about, from what I understand, doing all the research, the main thing is being able to have freedom and freedom of choice, and our freedoms are being taken away from us. They legalized weed and made it worse for us to have less freedoms when it came to it, because people that have medical cards now can no longer drive that have to take it. You know, like this has become beyond stupid.
Yeah, and people on prescriptions, yeah, it is. It's foolish.
And they could drive before, and that's the weird part. Like, so this is just one of the many things that, like, you're allowing your 4-year-old to choose their gender. They don't even know what they want to eat for supper. You say pizza, they're happy, you know, right? And if you don't comply with their wishes of a 4-year-old, then you can see Child Protective Service and any province can go confiscate your child. So unless you have a really good worker, which you don't, because they get paid a huge amount of money to steal or illegally kidnap your kids. But yes, no, apparently you're a bad parent. But no, what that is that's child abuse. If you let your child change genders at the age of 4, you are committing child abuse, plain and simple.
Yeah, it is beyond ludicrous that our government has even stepped into that direction with all the other nonsense that is going on in the world right now. Like all of this transgender agenda stuff was pushed in front of our kids right at the same time we had the threat of ISIS. I mean, this is how out of touch our governments have become. And it is no surprise that you see yellow vests in France, in Canada, some sort of sentiments growing in the US and Belgium, all over. Like the whole spirit is there that we, the people, have had enough. And it's not just America, we the people. It's we the people in France, we the people in England and Canada and Australia. This sentiment is being echoed all over the West now. And we're here now to tell you about it as it materializes out of the prairies and into Ottawa. We have people who have been involved in this. We've had a couple of interviews, various perspectives, you know, and we intend to keep on that, to deliver this for you right now as it unfolds.
No, absolutely. That's what we're trying to do. Normally, our shows are Thursday between 6 and 7 p.m., but because of what was going on, I consider this an emergency event. This is a life-changing event for the whole country, and it couldn't be ignored. And yes, we should have broadcast a little bit earlier too, but it was actually really nice today when I was watching one of the videos and they were going behind the truck and the guy had a Saskatchewan flag on. That was so awesome. Like, go Saskatchewan, right? Right there with everyone. There a lot of people I knew that are there, and nobody phoned me up to tell me until it was too late, and I knew there was something going on. So we do need a better communication network too. That's why the underground social network is perfect, because your posts aren't being removed because they don't satisfy Facebook's personal needs, which is why we need a better communication setup altogether. So join the underground social network at canard.com. And thank you very much for listening to that commercial.
Go ahead, Marty. Commercial there. Yep.
Well,
I got to realize this is kind of Google Hangouts. While we're on YouTube, I guess we could start reading chat. I don't know how many people we have listening, though.
We have, let me just double check here, because I know we have on Facebook, we have one person live at the moment. Everyone's really busy with people over there, but they'll see this. And I mean, I don't want to take attention to what's currently going on. Everyone's really busy with people over there, but they'll see this. Okay, there we go. I mean, I don't want to take attention to what's currently going on.
Yeah. Well, it looks like there is 2 people watching. It's probably us.
Yeah, that was probably just us on. But you know what? It gets out there. We get more subscribers every time, and we're doing good. Even though I'm not a big fan of Gab, I do share it. Yeah. So we get more subscribers, which is pretty cool. I love what these guys are doing, though, Marty. I really do. If I had the money, I would have been catching a flight tonight and being there for tomorrow morning. Yeah. And, you know, but it is what it is, right? So
yeah.
I'm not donate either. So
yeah. Well, I'm a little disappointed they didn't come in through Brandon. All they would have been able to do was probably film the trucks as they drive through. It didn't even sound like anybody in the Brandon community even really stood up, like out in the open, to give them a place to rest, which is kind of disappointing. But I did hear through the grapevine that there was a lot of local support in Brandon. It's just a bit disappointing to see that they didn't stop by to say hi. I would have filmed them and I would have presented something for us here on NBCM News, but it is what it is. All in all, I am still stoked as you are, Scott. I am happy that this is happening.
You know, it's too bad too that they didn't take the highway right beside my place. Otherwise, I would have been out there too taking footage. But they went south instead of north. Yeah. So it is what it is. They went through a giant route.
Well, I understand that they have to be wary of security. You talked about that earlier, and we're gonna maybe we can hammer that out a little bit about some of these security issues for our audience here, like that they've been facing. You know, like we can talk a little bit about a caution of certain people, like who may be getting the wrong idea for the right reasons, like Rudy Bruce there. You know, might have good intentions, but might be causing some damage in the face of the fact that, like you've mentioned, Antifa trying to sabotage the movement like they have. Like you can just talk to Patriot Prayer in the States, or you can talk to the the Proud Boys up here, like Proud Patriot groups who just keep getting labeled as hate groups to tell you how annoying Antifa and their state support is. So yeah.
Because I'm on a Bruce Willis, when I went on one of the Bruce Willis shows there, I ended up being on
Duke Willis. This is a correction there. Duke Willis, right?
Willis, yeah, sorry. Because of that, I'm on his Antifa's hit list. If you actually Google my name, you'll actually see that on there. I got a kick out of it. Like, I'm not threatening because we want to actually take care of our own people first. That they labeled us as a racist. Well, see, let's define what our people are. People that were born in Canada or adopted in Canada, with people that have been here for many generations. So from Aboriginal to Caucasian to Black, East Indian, whatever, right? It don't matter.
European, Aboriginal, yeah.
What matters is if you're born here, you're Canadian. And that's what we're standing up for, is all Canadians, whether you view yourself as Canadian or not. Because I know the Aboriginals, sometimes they don't view themselves as Canadian, but most of us do. And yes, they've been in a bad situation. We all have. And that's what we got to realize together is that we're all in the same shithole. And if we come together, we can make a huge difference as Canadians.
Yeah, that is it. As a Canada, like we are in a tribe called Canada. That's the way we got to start thinking. You know what I mean? Every one of us. You know what I mean? We already are in a tribe. It's called Canada. And we're not going to get out of our problems until we start thinking like the tribe, like, away from this whole tribe called white, tribe called red, tribe called Cree, tribe called Europe. If that's the best way I can describe it. I don't think anybody's pitched it that way, but it's not working. You know what I mean? That identitarianism isn't gonna, if it's gonna supersede our rule of law, it's just gonna be nothing but problems. And you're gonna ignore the poverty. You're just gonna keep repeating cycles. And that's what we're all about. You know, if you talk to some of the people we're affiliated with, like the Bear Clan in Manitoba, who are very successful in Brandon and Winnipeg and bringing social awareness to the ongoing meth crisis in Manitoba. Talk to Scott Backkildor there about the CCP project and the Teen Challenge. He will have plenty to say. And it all comes together. Like, you look at what's coming together. You have two people, Christian, atheist, one of the Republic, one of Bernier's boys, myself, PPC Party of Canada. We're coming together for Canada. You know, we have different ideas about how we're going to do it, but at least we're coming together. We're forming things like canon.com for you guys. And we're bringing objective and fairly reported news and commentary for you so that you can make your own decisions. Regardless of how you think, we're all Canadians. Tribe called Canada. There you go, Scott.
Well, absolutely. And in most countries, like you go to Cuba, and even though there's no original Aboriginals from there because they're all wiped out, you don't hear them say, I'm Spanish. You hear them say, I'm Cuban. Or say for Mexico, I'm Mexican. But that they were Spanish at one point, right? So are they Spanish or are they Mexican, right? But you know, and here in Canada, it's like, I'm not Canadian, I'm English, Scottish, you know, whatever, right? That's what you hear people say instead of saying, well, no, I'm Canadian, right? And that's what we need people to realize, that if you're living here, you're part of the system, you're Canadian, and we all need to stand up together as Canadians to make a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, do you have any way to show any footage? Like, do you have any live access to any of the stuff going on, perhaps? Like, to maybe better take advantage of the screen you have set up in the background there.
I am looking now, so just go on. I'll talk about a few things, and I'll see what I can get for us. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll go on and explain a few things about how to maintain unity within canon.com, like not canon, within the Yellow Vests. Like, already we're having people starting to splinter off and get maybe a little too suspicious of one another, but I don't see that as being too productive. Like, already, even amongst some of the alternative social media platforms, Scott and I have already had to deal with people who are setting up their own operations, and they're throwing nothing but shade and threats around. Like, we should leave that stuff south of the border, you know what I mean? I think we can do a bit better than that. And we got to keep that kind of mentality going once we have these Yellow Vests get to where they need to go. We can't keep bickering amongst ourselves when we all kind of have the same idea in mind. And the thing that disappoints me the most out of all of these movements is the fact that they are so dated. They have a timestamp on them. And once they expire, you can expect things to go sideways. You can expect things to go wrong with them. And it looks like here Scott's got some footage here of what's going on in or near Ottawa here. So I will shut my gob here. I think most of you are grown men and women, know how to act like adults and keep things together. So let's watch. Let's watch and learn how to do it.
Pretty exciting news about Gerald Butts.
So the great part is that you can hear everyone honking at them as they go by as for support, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we should apologize for the rough quality of this, but this is just an impromptu setup I thought we'd suggest. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to keep this up, but we're just going to see what's going on with this convoy. This is quite clearly one of the pickup trucks. A guy on his cell phone holding it up vertically, filming the truck in front of him. And it looks like, if I were to be a guessing man, they are probably on the 400 heading south, because that does look like either what was Heart Lake Road. What do you think there, Scott? Where do you figure they are?
can't say, to be honest with you. It's still too early to tell.
It doesn't. I'm willing to bet that's the 400 or Heart Lake Road at the very least.
Just as an exit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the video can't get any bigger.
Go on the last live feed.
But yeah, no, we'll see if there's any other ones that are better cleared up here.
Yeah, they're probably all over. There should be some that are already in Ottawa. If that wasn't them there, and I'm just out to lunch with my directions.
Here we go. Their official video.
So they're starting their stream soon, eh? Yep, we should probably look at some ways to get some software set up so we can just do this. We can emulate this right on the screen, eh?
Yeah, it's
kind of like the pros do. But that's just suggestion for later.
It's different with the whole live thing compared, if you're making a video. So this isn't too bad. It's actually a pretty good setup. I'm going through a lot of different things here, but yeah, no, we have contacts with a lot of things here in our studio here. So
yeah,
no, let's continue the talks here. It looks like they're still heading to Ottawa. From what I understand, listening to everyone, they were planning on doing the protest today, but it doesn't look like it's happening today. So we're hopefully going to get as much coverage as we can. We do have a guy on the ground there, so that's pretty cool. So we should see progress as it goes along here. But yeah, the biggest thing, seeing the Saskatchewan flag there earlier today, that was awesome. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, Saskatchewaners get involved. Usually Saskatchewan and Manitoba are the last ones to make change, and we're out there as Saskatchewan boys trying to make change.
Well, yep, Saskatchewan had a bit of, I think I attribute that to the work that, the hard work that Brad Wall and the Saskatchewan Party has been doing in restoring some sort of balance and unity within the province of Saskatchewan. And I think the success there, we're feeling it right now. So I'm not necessarily too surprised that Saskatchewan's showing a lot more enthusiasm than, say, the province of Manitoba, where we've just recently kicked our rotten government to the curb. And just give Manitoba some time. I think they'll get the momentum going. It'll just take they're just going to wipe the apathy out of the gears, so to speak. But so far, I'm so impressed. But go ahead.
Yeah, to make it clear, we actually don't have anything to do with Rudy Bruce. He was just a guy who was on the show. We thought he may have made some progress, but he chose his own path in a different way. So we do not have any affiliation with Rudy Bruce. For anyone who saw him on the show there, now you know, and we just thought we'd put that out there. Thank you for on that.
Yeah, Scott and I don't really have any affiliation with any of our guests unless we directly say so on the show. Like we are denouncing our support for the Yellow Vests because of what it represents. But other than that, any individual that comes on our show, we do not represent their values and they do not represent our values necessarily. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, absolutely. And we love what they're doing, where they're standing up for Canadians all across the country. And, the biggest thing that I find irritating that most people don't even realize that these people are going there for a reason. You need to stand up, pay attention, get off your cell phone, or if it's on your cell phone, go to your cell phone and listen to their messages. Find out what these people are going around for. And that's what our job here is today, is hopefully to get this out and make progress. And then tomorrow we'll get set up on that, and hopefully it won't take too long. They'll be in the evening tomorrow, and it should be good. We normally have our show from 6 to 7 p.m. on Thursdays. We always usually have a guest. We have a gentleman from Newfoundland, Chris, there. So it's pretty cool. He's going to come on live on Thursday and be our guest. Hopefully we can get some more people going on as momentum. If we have any more stuff going on tonight, we'll happily go emergency broadcast again. Anything that is not out of our normal routine will be considered an emergency broadcast, so people are aware. This is why we put it up, because this is out of our normal routine for shows. And I thought, well, we had to put it out there, get it out there, because these saints, and they are saints, because to be brave enough to be able to go up there and stand like that and possibly risk losing everything for your beliefs and to help protect Canadians, that's a huge thing. I mean, that takes a lot of guts to do that. Like when I went and camped out downtown Ottawa last year, yeah, as much as I went going there, I was scared shitless, but I still did it, right? But that you get over that fear. Once you've accomplished that and you keep going, you get over that fear and you keep going. There's a lot of people that have made progress in this country. I am probably one of the few that can say I camped downtown Ottawa for 19 days straight and succeeded with, and I did learn a lot. It was a great little city. They couldn't remove us because of their own laws, which was great. In the Freedom of Charter and Rights, you have the right to be able to stay on federal crown land for up to 45 days if you do not have a home in that province. Just remember that. And then if you're officially protesting, so put some signs up saying we're raising awareness for the homeless, and as long as you move your tent around once in a while so you don't wreck the grass, then you're perfectly fine.
Well, there you go. That should be freedom of assembly we should all enjoy. But we have to get some things done before we do that. Like we mentioned Antifa. They like to hit that freedom of assembly of certain groups, you know. People are so quick to forget what they were permitted to do before they were Antifa. They were just Occupy or Anonymous or whatever you wanted to call them. They were permitted to do anything they wanted, litter all over the streets, leave garbage everywhere. Now they've escalated to smashing windows and committing vandalism. And you have police agencies, mayors, and other state agencies letting them break up organizations that are being done in universities. They're being done in community centers. Like they're being permitted to storm these things as if there's some sort of like Hitler Youth Gestapo. And I find that really odd. That is what we have to go up against when we try to form these movements for whatever purpose. Is we get the shit flung at us, all kinds of names, all kinds of labels. And it's part of the reason that I'm motivated to doing what I'm doing. I'm here to break through that and tell the truth.
Well, see, the reality is we wouldn't need to be sitting here fighting if our government actually represented the people. That's the reality, is we wouldn't have this job if they would do their job properly. And that's the reality. They steal from us left, right, and center. And yes, taxation is theft because there's a lot of countries that pay out their people, not to, like a socialist stance, more or less, hey, because you're I guess you could say like a shareholder of their corporation, they actually pay you out, which is pretty cool, instead of taxing the crap out of them. And Canada, before World War I, we didn't pay income tax or land taxes. And so this is still generally fairly new. But it's been so many generations that nobody remembers that.
Yep. And at the same time, our governments, we're just accustomed to it being normal that our governments waste money. But just imagine that, like, if we could actually even possibly do the reset of lowering taxes and at the same time getting them not to waste money, we probably wouldn't even need to have a good number of these taxes. We could offer tax relief, get some small business growth back in here, restore the middle class. That's a big fundamental part of what the LFS movement's about.
Well, see, the big thing is if we could get it set up so the people could actually have a vote on laws from federal, provincial, and down to municipality, and set it up so that way these people are making decisions. If they make the wrong decisions, they can actually be held accountable, because right now they can't be. And that's very frustrating.
Yep, we do need some sort of recall legislation. I say that specifically is because we had several years ago, we had Randy Hillier in Ontario pass unsuccessfully that legislation through the Ontario legislature. But that is exactly what is needed, is that type of legal document which holds elected officials responsible and accountable if they violate any code of ethics or break any kinds of laws. And we don't necessarily have that buffer to protect Canadian citizens, and we need that.
Absolutely. We need to set it up so that way people are actually protected, not the government. The government shouldn't need a military to protect it if it was serving the people.
No, the military should be protecting the people. It shouldn't be protecting the government. And that should tell you something right there, is when you see a lot of these officials hiring insanely tactical looking security, and you just see that, well, why? Like, there was a time when these politicians, some of them would boast about riding on the subway every morning in Toronto and not having to worry about fighting off angry or irate passengers all the time. I don't think they can do that now. I doubt that. Anybody in Toronto City Council can brave the streets of their own people anymore? I seriously doubt it. We've fallen quite far in Canadian politics, even as we say all of this. It's not like we were always like this. It's we've had our problems in the past, especially out in the prairies. But nowadays, we seem to have doubled down, and we've made it to a point where none of this can be ignored. We can't sweep this under the rug anymore.
No, absolutely. And I mean, Canada used to be, well, I wouldn't say it's like great. We were a good country, and we took care of our own, and then we helped take care of others, right? And somewhere along the line, we forgot to take care of our own, and then we are still supposedly taking care of the rest of the world, but the rest of the world that, you know, is actually probably more better off than we are, and that's the sad part.
It's that was warned about too. I remember being in high school, and this is when that outsourcing was initially starting to get warned about at university levels. I even have a couple of papers from the 90s, and the teachers were all talking about this, particularly in history and economics class. I remember this quite clearly. And and if you think about it, like if you were in the right class at the right time, listening, you could see that a group of 17-year-old kids and a few teachers who may or may not have been on the ball here, we foreshadowed this. We foreshadowed that the technology is going to go overseas because our jobs went overseas, and the quality of Canadian labor is going to plummet because there'll be no demand for it in Canada anymore. You know what I mean? We're going to be wanting our jobs. We're going to want our university, Ivy League style jobs in the West in general. And we're going to start importing our menial labor, kind of like how they were referencing what they did to the Italians when they imported them after World War II. They were coming in, they were being garbage men, construction workers, you know what I mean? And they were getting slandered, the racism was thrown at them, like without papers, that, you know, that acronym, right, Scott? And yeah, it's fresh with a lot of those of us who are long in the tooth. But yeah, and that's exactly the trend that we have to buck up and fight up against. We have people here. We have to take a look at our labor organizations and get them more streamlined so that we can compete first and foremost. Get some small businesses off the ground so we can start domestically producing goods, start domestically providing services that we need for Canadians, so we're not calling India for help all the time. Like, we've already run into trouble with that as Canon personally as well. And yeah, a whole economic reset that everybody has been warning about, who's been thinking about it since the 1990s and even the 1980s. I think one of the papers I have is from them. But yeah, go ahead there, Scott.
No, we've been making progress over the last couple of years. I mean, most of us here that are sitting here talking right now, this isn't our first show. This isn't our first time talking. We've been talking about poverty, well, at least 4 or 5 years for me. And then I'd say when I was 19, 20, I started realizing that there was a way we could actually help people, but nobody wanted to listen to that because it wasn't as bad off. And then we had the 08 crash. And what does our stupid government do? They go and bail the companies out and then don't fine them when they didn't hold their word. That's the part that pissed me off. Like, get shares or something in exchange. It should have been an investment. And then if they chose to not follow their word, fine everything, grab all their property, and start a new company for car companies. And say, you know what? Or, you know, like Ford. Ford never got a bailout. They should have said, oh, hey, Ford, do you want to buy these factories off us and put these people, or actually, you can have these factories for free if you put these people back to work. Absolutely. And I guarantee you, all they would have to do is invite Ford to a meeting, like the CEOs of Ford and the managers, and it's like, okay, well, look, GM, the rest of the guys, Ford has agreed that if you leave, they're going to take all your factories and they don't have to pay a damn thing, and they're going to put all your people back to work. That's what a real government should have done. But what they did was, oh, we handed some money. Oops, they ran away. Now what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
You know, like, come on. It's just the stupidity. I mean, and I know governments aren't supposed to interfere with full business, but at the same time, and their main job isn't always to provide jobs either, but they still need to look after their people. So when they make backyard deals on the whole setup, it really screws over Canadians. We should not have signed in the 80s an agreement with the U.S. saying that we cannot manufacture with our own companies here across Canada. Now, that's changed. People still do it. But a lot of the companies are up here are American. All the oil pipelines are American. All the oil refineries are American. Seeing a trend here, a lot of our restaurants, businesses, everything is American. And we're sitting here worried about a few people that are coming in. Our real enemy, who are sitting there buying everything out, now is Saudi Arabia. They're buying everything from the Americans. So what we need to do is realize that we need to take our country back, but not just the other deal, because the reality is with the U.S., with our trade war thing, if they want to, all they have to do is shut off the food to all their grocery stores they own across, and everyone's going to starve very quickly.
Yep.
All they have to do is shut down Walmart.
Well, not everybody will starve, as our economy will collapse, and that'll cause a whole lot of things, starvation included. That's what you're speaking of, is a lot of problems. Yeah.
Well, if they stop, they shut down Walmart, Superstore. The only place that would technically be open still is No Frills and Canadian Wholesalers. But since Superstore is American-owned company, not Canadian, then there's Costco, Sobeys, Safeway. The list goes on of all these different companies that are American-owned. And there's only one or two that are left that aren't. But, these other stores, well, they'd jack up their prices if there's no competition. Just wait and see, right? And then people won't be able to afford to eat. But exactly. I'm using this worst case scenario. Sorry about that. But
normally, in the past, I would have said that kind of talk is foolish. Like, we're in the West, who would attack our food supply? But the way politics are going these days, I'm not so certain anymore. I think it is time we really take a serious look at our supply management and update it and overhaul it. You know what I mean? Because if we mismanage this file too badly, we could see more of the same stuff going on. No access to food up north, no access to food in the West, food prices continuing to go up. And if dirty politics continues to be played between Canada and the US, sanctions and trade wars, as you described, those are the actions of sanctions and trade wars, like where Walmart closes up and leaves. That could cause more than just depression. That could cause a failed state.
Well, it's not just Walmart. Like all the different stores. And you actually look at most of those products, USA, China, a lot of other countries those products come from, but very rare do we ever see Canadian-made products in our own grocery stores.
No, we don't. No, just and it changed really suddenly in the mid-20th century as well. Where we had Rubbermaid, we used to have Stanley, we used to have all kinds of stuff being made in Canada back then. All that's gone.
Absolutely. And the thing is, a lot of companies moved down to the U.S. or bought out and moved down to the factory there because their taxes are way less, labor is way cheaper, and when it comes down to it, they're trying to run a business and make as much money as they can, right? But when they get it so that way it's cheaper, then they can sell it cheaper to the rest of the world too. But the biggest thing right now, when I was talking about the whole grocery store thing, is not that far off. They cut off our lumber to the U.S. They've cut off a lot of different things now. So what's to stop them from going the next way? And I'm not trying to scare people into the whole thing, but stock up, prepare, what you can. Because, we do have a lot of co-ops that are American-owned too. There's a lot that are Canadian, but again, a lot of their products are not Canadian. So if they shut down the border 100%, where would we get our fruit and vegetables? Where would we get a lot of food products? It would come down to pretty much beef and potatoes if we were lucky. For a lot of product, for very little products that are on there, we'd be massively having to open up factories again and mills to be able to start processing flour again, so that way we could just have bread. But it would be chaos very quickly, unfortunately. And we're already starting to see this happen with the whole border shutdown for certain things already. They're not taking our lumber. They're not taking a lot of different products right now. So they're not taking our steel, which the steel part I can see because it's not ours. Canada hasn't produced steel in 11 years. We've been, companies that have claimed that they're producing steel has been taking it from China relabeling and sending it down south. That's why
Really?
that's off.
A lot of Canadians don't know that. That's an interesting thing to look into as well. Like, that's the type of dirty politics, again, that we keep talking about. But continue. Yeah.
No, I mean, and that's just some of the stuff. But I mean, the biggest thing is we're sitting here now. I mean, we have a prime minister who is pretty much selling us out on everywhere. I mean, Harper started it, and then the ones before him started it.
Gretchen and Mulrooney and Clark. It's not a new thing.
No, it started with Trudeau Sr. pretty much for the most part, and then kept going. I mean, and the weirdest part is you got to ask yourself too. And I know I'm going to change the subject a bit here. See, most people don't realize, if you haven't heard this before, Justin Trudeau used to be a high school teacher, and he was fired because of allegations of inappropriate contact with his students. Those 6 students that went against him disappeared, never to be found again.
Yeah, I remember you speaking of that earlier. That is definitely something for people to explore as well. I mean, Trudeau, there is we see him with pictures with Kathleen Wynne and Benjamin Levin. Benjamin Levin, for those of you who don't know, is a convicted pedophile. He was arrested and charged, I believe, in 2015 on charges of creating and distributing child pornography. He initially comes from Manitoba's Department of Education, and he was arrested shortly after he transferred to the Ontario Department and wrote the sex ed curriculum that is currently quite controversial right now. And yeah, there's something underneath Trudeau. There's something there. And I honestly think that Tom Quiggin, in this case, has cause to arrest and charge Trudeau with a variety of crimes as well in relates to funding terrorists. I think there's plenty for any sane prosecutor to go after him for conflict of interest. And that's like, we need a change here. Like, we have criminals running our government to the point where it is now necessary to invoke a referendum initiated by the citizens. We've gone too far this time.
Well, no, absolutely. Like, we should be able to kick our government out if they're not doing their job properly, but we also need to set it up so that way we can have a vote on laws. This way, they don't pass anything unless the people give a vote. And if the vote's not there, then they're going to need to rearrange it, or actually have something where the people want.
Yeah, this is the type of solution talk we need. That's one part of the two. There's 2 prongs to this problem. First prong is our laws. That's what it has to be. We need to choose them better. And the second one, the ones that work need to be better enforced. I just wanted to interject that there, as we also have a lot of problems with justices of the peace, police chiefs, and all this giving or receiving nonsensical orders to look the other way. With a good example would be Roxham Road in Quebec, where the government's paying hush money and they're just opening the border. That's illegal, but that's our own government doing that, and they're allowing it to happen. That has to stop. That kind of behavior has to stop. The laws that we have on the books need to be enforced better as well. But go ahead, Scott.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of corruption no matter where we go. And what we need to do is bring it down to 30 laws again. I mean, our government shouldn't be here to implement a new law every week or every year even. They should be there for the people's needs and being able to put stuff around so the resources deal with trade and commerce and stuff like that. Their business shouldn't be writing a new friggin' law every week to a month, or even, maybe 1 or 2 a year. Fine. But that should be something that people should have a say so on, not the other way around. And I get quite insulted when they say, oh, well, the people shouldn't have the right to because they're too stupid. I've heard that from politicians before, saying that people are too stupid to be able to make votes. Well, you know what? If they're a little slow, so what? They should still have that right. They should have that right as a so-called free nation that we've never gotten to choose, because we don't have a constitution. We have a freedom of charter and rights that was see, the reason why Trudeau Sr. needed to go to the Queen to make that legal was because it wasn't otherwise, and that's where I guess you could say the Canadian government really actually formed, was because it was recognized by the Queen. Yeah. So they put that through, it changed it, but when the Canada was formed, we never actually got a choice. And every time a country became a country, we usually had a choice in how it was supposed to be set up. and we never did. We never fought for our freedom either. So as far as the Queen still holds a lot of land here. She still tries to collect taxes once in a while. Now with her new palace, because the person won't pay for it, now she's coming to Canada. Oh, would you pitch in, $19 million? She's one of the richest ladies in the world, other than the World Bank, which is two separate entities, by the way, if people don't know. But yeah, no. And they're sitting there relying on the taxpayers to pay their bills when, all they need to do is sell off some land.
Yeah, that's the thing. Or they can just live off the ursaries and the interest. You know what I mean? Like, not ursaries. I don't think they're into loan sharking or whatever the hell. But at the same time, they can get into insurance. They can incorporate themselves and make money off of just interest, private or public. I don't understand why they need to be involved in politics at all. They have such an obscene amount of wealth that it pays for itself. And even then, they can privatize in a variety of ways and utilize their land and show how, lead by example. How are nobles supposed to really act? How about you act noble?
Well, 2 decades ago, the Queen was given a choice by the British government and the people, saying you can only be Queen and King of one nation. And they chose Britain. So by doing that too, that set it up so Canada's open up. We don't have we have a pretend queen, but we don't actually have a queen. So anyone of royal descent could go in and claim that throne. So we need to get rid of that throne position because it becomes dangerous. We could have someone way worse than Trudeau get in, and if they're in kingship, there's nothing we could do to remove them.
Yeah. Not yet, at least. There is that too with the Doug Force and all of this talk about how Canada is technically not, but that reinforces the argument in favor of the RIC, because part of that initial referendum would be to establish Canada as a sovereign state. We would have to appeal and petition it, but I honestly don't see anybody why they would even consider that a big deal. It'd probably be quickly muckled onto and swept under the rug and dealt with quietly behind closed doors. And be Canada, your nation now.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing that bugs me too is that, they always claim the crown land belongs to the people. You try making a claim on crown land. See how fast you get your ass kicked off.
Belongs to the crown. That's exactly written as it is too, as well. And it gives the people a lot of sway to play favorites. Like, oh, it belongs to the people when it's our developers, but no, it belongs to the crown when it's somebody we don't like so much. It opens up that kind of avenue as well. I wrote an article where, in particular, that type of judicial confusion and favoritism that creeps in when you end up seeing kinds of vague laws and outdated and archaic minutes within charters. We have to make sure they're updated and clear in context to today. That's another problem we have in Canada. We have so many old and archaic laws that are so out of touch because they're from a time that's gone. We need to have a look at that.
No, absolutely. And see, the thing is, too, is as if, go back to the land thing there, is if we could have claimed land for at least the project, right? We would already be up and running for the CCP program. But the government won't even donate land to the program because it's too confusing, they claim. No, it gives them less control and the people more control with these communities because we're actually getting away from their addictions if they have addiction problems, help them with their mental health and healing, the whole 9 yards, and helping them actually get back up on their feet, training with new skills, the whole 9 yards. While they're there, their families are there, their kids taking school programs, stuff like that. So it's not just schooling for adults and courses on that. Then it would be also for the children as well that are currently there, with their families. And so
for cycle breaking, that's one aspect of many needed solutions in this, because this is a complex issue. Like when I spoke earlier about poverty and mental health issues and tied it all together, what the prairies need, and I would even say some of the states in the Midwest, because they're going through the heroin and the fentanyl as well, the way we are up here as well, and meth it needs to be done at the same time, and not a single aspect needs to be missed. You have people who need to break cycles, and then you have people who are just immigrating to these provinces from Canada, from outside of Canada. And you also have people who are trying to get up off their feet. They're starting work. They're retiring even. They're going into homes. All of this has to be addressed at the same time, because poverty is the elderly. Poverty is people just getting up off the ground. Poverty is children. It's all over the place. And the solution also has to be in each specific place as well.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the U.S. part there, because our plan is, once we clean up our own backyard, not so much to go down the U.S., but it doesn't mean that we can't campaign and recruit and bring people that want change up across, because in Canada, you can go to schooling here for 2 years at a time before you have to leave. And I mean, American's an American, right? I mean, not too worried about that. And I'm not talking about refugees. I'm talking about American people that are coming up here to get the same program. And then eventually, hopefully, they can bring it back to their country if their country's willing to open it up. Anytime someone's done change there, sometimes it always hasn't been good, but that was back in the 60s, 70s. So this is a huge, much different setup to way back then. We've done a lot of research and progress with the program, and that's why we've literally designed it so each community runs itself, but it's at the same time it all has a really good structure, so that way everyone keeps busy, everyone does their work, everyone gets fed, everyone is taken care of, instead of just a select group of people getting everything and then the rest all starve.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. That is something that I want to avoid, is making sure that we avoid the favoritism and the negligence that has become typical of our government. I mean, I attribute a lot of that to the corner cutting policies that we're used to seeing, where they care at election time and it's rush to make it look like they're causing a solution. And then that's what they do. They work to solve a part of the problem for photo ops and optics. They get elected and they ignore the problem. And then we end up with in the end, we end up with the same thing: half-assed solutions or no solutions at all.
Well, see, the worst part is I've approached them. We have the solution, but they don't want to dish out.
Not interested. No.
Because it wasn't their plan. They can't take credit for it. And honestly, I'm not giving a shit about the credit. I just want the funds to be able to go do it. And they can go around saying, yes, we're helping end poverty or whatever, right? I don't give a shit. I'm there to help the people. If they want the credit, they're more than happy to take the credit. But
what I wonder about too is I wonder if that has to do with our election cycles and the fact that we're so divided as a country that you can't have successive governments carry on a successful plan, because this plan is going to take more than one term of government as well. We're getting on to an hour though, Scott, so I think might be needing a commercial break here and possibly a bit of a break for ourselves. Who knows? Like, we might have something later on. You said possibly.
No, absolutely. So this broadcasting is brought to you by the Underground Social Network. Great place to go. Don't have to worry about getting restricted or banned. And it's free to use. We do have upgrades you can buy, but all the general services are absolutely 100% free, which is great. If you have any questions, come talk to us about it. We wanted an open platform. As long as you don't post pornography on there, everything else pretty much goes. You can go ahead and have freedom of speech, share your work, share your stuff without having to worry about your posts being removed because they may be offensive to someone. Well, guess what? If you don't like what someone's doing, you block them. We don't have a report buttons on there for people to mass spam report you, which is great. And so this is a huge difference. I do want to thank everyone for listening to this show. And if you're just tuning in, thank you for listening, even for a few minutes here. I hope you share it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's on Facebook as well as here. We do have a Facebook page. It's NBCM News. We are trying to get off Facebook, but for now, until then, we're going to keep getting people to come over and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's a great setup, usually once a week or more. As we get more and more guests, we'll have more and more shows. I love doing this. It's great to be able to talk to people, get that experience out there, and let people know what's really going on around this country. All right, I'm going to let Marty do his close here. Thank you very much for listening. God bless.
Okay. Well, all in all, in a nutshell, what we talked about today was unity within the movement, the enthusiasm and the promise it brings, and just to keep it together, guys. Make sure that you keep things thoughtful. Think of each other, and make sure that you don't get hosed by the lies, and always double check with what the mainstream is telling you. Anyways, I am Marty. You can listen to us on Long Live Radio on Sundays, TalkStream Live, or look for Riabo on YouTube as well. And just about every week on NBCM News here with Scott and I. And have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.
You'll also see us at between 6 and 7 p.m. on Thursdays evenings, Central Standard Time, Saskatchewan. Thank you very much. God bless, guys.